I'm here with Face, new appointed head coach of the Gladiators. It's been a while though. We're deep in the off season. It's not too much going on. We don't even have the game yet. But I thought we would sort of like introduce you to the audience, sort of have them know like what the first new head coach that the Gladiators ever had after David is about, and like a little bit of your thinking going to the next season and where you come from. So, of course, you're Australian. You were on the World Cup team before, and for a lot of it, it feels like, also knowing the stories of Avril, but also other Australian players, the hardest part is getting off the island or the continent. So, how did that happen for you?
How did it happen for me? I I think I had like a little advantage. There was like moderate interest in Australian contenders like at the very start of the thing. So that's how like Color Hex and myself got picked up. Um, we were just like the dominant team at the time. I was coaching and like I had like a good team. Um, and then someone suggested my name to like an NRG as an assistant role, and then like that's how I got picked up.
You had a little chuckle when I brought up World Cup. Why is that?
I was on the team as a player, so
Did you play?
insane player. No, fuck no.
That was a
Uh,
rhetorical question. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, like
I was just on the team as a player to because it was a free way to get like another coach, and they were always just gonna have six
right,
players. So
right, yeah,
they were in a position where I got a free ticket across as a coach to help out.
yeah. I mean, the team you coached for, Sydney Dropbears, was actually pretty stacked considering like if we look at the names now. I think you guys had 3 players, like if people recall, like Trill that played for
Uh,
Dallas Fuel, right?
Shul and Punk never played.
Right.
Um,
But Color Hex
we
played,
try
right?
we like Color Hex did. But at the end of my tenure on Sydney Drop Bears, we like tried to shuffle around and pick up like these guys, but they immediately went to ours. So like I think they got announced and then like they immediately got picked up. But I never really coached them or played with them. Or they played for Drop Bears.
Did you know
But
that
yeah, Color Hex. Yeah,
you guys had like all caliber players when you were playing there?
yeah, like we definitely had like, and we had like a really smart team. Like Color Hex was just like head and shoulders above everyone else, and then we had like some other like really smart players. That like I think if they had like more opportunities, they could have like pushed harder, or like um some of them if they just wanted to like were a bit more ambitious, they could have like done a little bit more.
Do you have like names for us that you think like should have definitely made out?
I don't know, definitely such a strong word, like especially in Australia when like the competition is so weak. But like I think someone like Bertlog, if he like tried really hard, like he was a main support player back in the day. Um, or still is, he's still playing. I But he never really like pushed really hard. Like he didn't really want to go to L. Like he'd want to just like have fun. But like he was like like a really good leader. Good skills. Like really good like mentor. I think if he really like pushed for it, like was like really ambitious and um like wanted to go outside and like try really hard, he could have got onto like an American like good teams in America and then like maybe push into L.
Right. Now, there's this talk about other countries. Like we know French people or French players in the league are pretty tight. Danish people are pretty tight in terms of like just giving each other some information or like help with contract structures and whatnot, like informing each other. Is there such a thing for the Australian group?
Um, yeah, like I think we all just help each other. We're all like pretty friendly. Like like all the Australians and Carl Hex as well, I guess. Include him in it. Uh, we're all like good friends. Like I catch up with Punk and before Until was on Glads, like I caught up with him like all the time, and now Gumba's back in the league. Like it's just another person that you can just like bounce things off. It's a little bit weird, like when you start to compete against each other. Like Until and I have been like good friends for a long time, and then like we be like Glads and Atlanta like that was our biggest rival for most of the year. Um, and like it really kind of limits most of the things you talk about are Overwatch, and then like your biggest rival is on the other team. Like it's hard to talk about certain things, so it kind of like I don't know, makes it all a bit weird and hard.
For sure. Did that ever like facilitate more practicing between those teams, or like did it help in any way?
No, not really. Like it's just everyone's a bit like everyone's very coy about like any useful information. It's just it's just another team. It's just like I guess
Yeah. Now, I mean, going chronologically onto the next step, you then coach for NRG, and I mean, in hindsight, that team was actually silly stacked, and NRG as a contenders team, probably one of the more successful teams, judging by the amount of people that were able to be promoted. So just like I think from your era, it was like Smex, Kevster, Stan One, Byram, Mirror, and then also Hello I'm Halo. And those guys, like to varying degrees, had success in now. Were you aware that that was like a thing, or is there any other dynamic? Like, were the buyouts pretty reasonable for NRG? Like, why do you think so many of your players were able to be promoted?
I mean the buyouts. I don't think anyone. I'm not sure if anyone got bought out. Aside from maybe Byron. Because I think Energy got killed off, and then everyone started getting promoted. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really like a buyout. No problems about buyouts or pricing or anything like that. It was just like a really talented team. We like underperformed. Sorry, I'm getting attacked. Um, this is a really talented. We underperformed for sure. Uh, but I think like at the start, everyone's like different. Like, well, no one was like these fully formed players that you have now. Like, especially like people like Kev and Mirror. Um, everyone was like kind of at different stages of their career, like, and needed a little bit more time or like be able to put that together as like a team. Because I think if we did that, like, if you got all those players, like at a certain point, that team would just be like really, really dominant contenders team.
How good was Kevster back then?
Uh, it was mostly goats. So, like, in terms of impact, like, he was an insane DPS player. We would like try and get him, like, do like strategies to get him like on DPS, like Tracer or just any other DPS hero, but for the most part, it was like a goats meta across when I coached. So still a really good player. Like still had a lot to learn. Um, still does. But like in terms of like him in like goats, he was definitely not as dominant as he is just like being a DPS player.
Right. Now, back then, the staff that you had was also Moby or Moby Dick, who's now with Toronto. How was it like working with him? And was that your first experience just like working alongside like a Korean like coworker?
Yeah, it was my first time working alongside with anyone. I guess like that was like an actual coach. So yeah, Moby was great. Moby was like just he was like a great coach to work with. A really smart guy. Really like knew how to like work with like players and like anyone else. Really patient, which was good for me at the time. Uh, he like at the time his English wasn't very good. He was still learning. So it was like there was parts where it was like really hard, but like I think he was just like a phenomenal guy to like do that and work with me at the time. Just this new coach.
Right. How would you evaluate your coaching ability at the time?
Well, it's always pretty mediocre at the start. Um, yeah, I just think I had a lot to learn. Like in like before that, it was just like me, and I could like just do whatever, and like you could like kind of just like play around basically and like learn and make mistakes. Whereas like when you get like you're working with other people, like other professional people, like you kind of lose a little bit of that freedom, and you kind of like you're more like suggest like if you have like a head coach, you kind of like have to like suggest things or like steer things in certain ways, and um, so that was a little learning experience.
Right. Now, moving along to then you come into Talon, so we sort of already established like you had like prior connections with Kevster and Mirror. Now you get into the next stage of the career. Once again, not just one, but now two Gladiators players show up. And I guess let's first talk about Muse. Like, what was it like coaching him back then? And like, was that already something? Did you locate him as like a talent back then?
Yeah. So when not NRG got disbanded, I guess is the word. Like I had to go out looking for a job, and I knew Apudo from just previous. I used to play a little bit in like Southeast Asia, so I knew Apudo. And I knew of Paddy at the time, just as a player, and he wasn't on Talon at the time, or he was going to join Talon. I think I knew that, and for some reason I knew that the Talon tanks were like really good. Um, it's like no one really knew that, and so I asked the Piddle, like I just thought this team was going to be like really good, so I like asked if they were looking for a coach, and he kind of like suggested me like above, and I went through like the interview process, and they picked me up.
I think it's almost fair to say like that with your time there, it started that Talon became one of the better contenders teams in the world, right? Like that was sort of like laying the groundworks, even though like yeah, the results might have not been like exceptional there, but eventually, I mean, the last couple of years or seasons, this team has been pretty strong in the context, right?
Yeah, I mean the Talon right now, the contenders team, like they're like a genuine like really great team. I think the Talon that I coached in like the Pacific region, we had like good showings like at the Gauntlet, but at the time like Korean contenders teams were like probably just like a little bit above us. Um, so yeah, not quite like the best team at the start, but like the Talon org is a great org, and like they're like pushing. They're always like pushing to be better, and they're like you can see their results right now. It's great.
Were you mostly screaming Korean contenders teams then?
No, not mostly. Maybe just like 50%. Yeah. Lots of like Chinese teams and mostly like yeah, 50% Chinese, 50% Korean. Korean contenders.
Right. Now, going back on your Twitter, like I think it was a tweet from 2019, you thought that now a player that you've now recruited was the best player in the world. Of course, talking about Paddy. Did you what did you think like what this guy excelled at the time?
I think like he's a unique player. Like mechanically, like he can play like everything at a really high level, and then like he's like really strong like leadership abilities where like he can like he'll call like he's not afraid to make plays, like he's not afraid of like big moments, and he's not afraid to make like big plays in big moments. So he'll like put the team on his back. He understands like really complex things that like most people like they're really hard to coach. Things like like how to play tempo and how to find space in the game when like there seemingly is none. You can even see it like when he plays like Valorant, like he's the one that's just like kind of looks like he's like running into feed, but then he makes something happen, and he's always had like this innate ability to do that like off tempo and it's like spacing, and um it's like yeah, these are really like hard complex things to coach.
Right. Now, for the sake of chronology, we'll just like lay that string and we'll pick it up later because, of course, like in the now recruited him, and I definitely want to talk about that. But let's first establish like how did you even get with the Gladiators in the first place? Like, who approached you, and how was that process?
Um, After like we had a really successful gauntlet run. We like beat all the North American teams, like the academy teams that are there. Um, and then we went like we nearly beat like the Korean like EM and Genji like 2-3 in both series. So we had like really successful series. And then afterwards, so I just started like approaching all the teams that like I thought I could like join. And I had like a couple of offers, but I approached. I remember messaging Dpei, and then like he kind of like I don't know, he must have like checked me out and like gone through the process and like put me in. I came in like a bit later in the like preseason, I guess. So like they already had like Curry and Forces, and they had like all their team um fully formed at the start of the season, and then like I came in towards the end of the preseason.
Was it hard to work yourself into that team, and how much impact did you have on the structure or like the players that were being recruited at the time?
For 2020, I didn't bring any players in at the start of the season. The only like impact I had like recruiting wise was just like I guess bringing Kevin. Wasn't just like all me, but like I guess small part.
Right. Let's talk about that, because I talked to a lot of coaches in the past, and of course, like, they all knew of Kevster. They all tried to get him. Like, how did that process go? And like, what do you tell him? Because we kind of know that this was a gradual process of him just coming out of the shell, and eventually even joining the team in real life, right? So how was it from your point of view?
Yeah, so Kevster was like, he originally like he was the kid that fucked me on NRG. Like he was meant to come to LA, and then like I remember him like messaging me like 7 hours before his flight was coming, and he was like, oh, I'm not catching this flight. And I was like, oh shit. But really, like he was just like this young kid that like he's just pretty reserved guy, and then he was just young and not ready to move, and eventually like he loves Overwatch, he loves like competing and playing and like wants to be the best, and he knows that like to be the best like he had to like to take that next step and like push himself into an Overwatch League team. So like he would have always joined a team. It wasn't necessarily like my team or like some other team. Like eventually he would have got there. And I just happened to have like being Glads, and we had Chris, who's like his best friend and like had good connection with, and like we had like two people that had like a strong connection with him, so like it made it a little easier. Like and like he felt more like I guess more trust that he could come and like to Glads and like have a good time.
Did you have any question marks whether or not he was going to catch that plane when that was scheduled the second time?
Yeah, like yes and no. Like there's one thing I don't question about Kev is like his like desire to win. Uh so like I knew that he'd always get here, but like I guess until like I saw him like get off the plane, like I was like a bit there's like a little part of me that like I've been burnt once before, like I guess I was a little worried.
And that's the first part of our interview with Face. Now, with him, we talked a long time, so we split it up in 3 parts. And the second part is going to deal with his career at the Gladiators, how he arrived there, how his first season went, the things that he learned, and then eventually season 4 and the challenges of that season, where they missed Hawaii twice, what it was like playing against the Shanghai Dragons, and more. If you want to be notified when that goes live, hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification for all things Overwatch with GGRecon.